I do think it's a serious threat to democracy and our economy.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
And it is detrimental to almost the collective mental health of everyone on the planet.
Welcome to the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of best practices, latest trends, and modern techniques for professional business communication, including advertising, marketing, digital channels, social media, public relations, and alternative options.
Kyle, how are you doing this morning?
Fantastic, Pritch. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but we've got a little thing going on in Europe.
Well, yeah, there's some activity happening. I'm sure you have some very different insights than most people with your career in the Navy in communications.
Well, we've scrupulously avoided being
Easy
political on
say.
this show.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I don't want to get political, but I do think that with what's going on in Ukraine,
right,
with midterms coming up, so that means politicking. This is an important subject for me.
I don't think you can talk about business and 100% avoid politics. Politics influence business. There's a lot of decisions made on Capitol Hill and other places around the world, the Kremlin these days, that affect how businesses can operate, how they run. All the COVID response came from government to business, and we all had to react to it. So they're synergistic.
Well, and that's probably a real good example, too, of why this topic is near and dear to my heart. It's disinformation.
Oh, well,
the
scourge of 2022.
Absolutely. Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation.
Right.
So let me just give a quick definition of each of those terms because they're similar but they're different.
Okay, let's do it.
So misinformation is information that's misleading, erroneous, or false.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
It's generally shared, sometimes created by people who are unaware that it's inaccurate.
Yes. Just spreading it sounds good to them. Why not?
Why not? And the best term, and it's the best term to use when the intent of the creator or the sharer isn't known.
Okay.
So you don't go immediately to "you communist," right?
Or you liar.
Or you liar.
Or maybe even that liable or slanderous.
Right? Exactly. So, and at the root of all of this is civility.
Certainly.
And we've talked about civility on this show too, but this is one piece of a broader effort, and I think it's really important, particularly today. We're seeing this stuff real time.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
In a variety of ways. It's a little bit scary.
And it's not going to get much better between now and November.
Nope.
Okay. And so how is that different from disinformation? Well, disinformation is a subset, certainly, but it's deliberately created or shared with the intention to misinform or mislead.
So the intent here is the key.
The intent is the key.
Yes.
That's right. Absolutely. It's usually to achieve a desired ideological or political or even a financial result.
Certainly,
right?
trying to stilt the conversation in your favor, even though you probably don't deserve it.
Right. And malinformation is that one step. That's enemy propaganda. Okay,
right.
They are trying to be malicious with the information.
Is this like the Russians claiming that they went into Ukraine because of all the Nazis?
To save the Nazis, right? To get rid of the Nazis. And to save the Ukrainians.
To save the Ukrainians from the Nazis by bombing them out of existence,
exactly.
Which we all know is 100% false.
So why do people share misinformation?
Great question.
It is. It's a very interesting question too. I think many people share it unknowingly.
I would think most people do.
And sometimes with good or altruistic intentions, too.
Yeah, I think especially when the information seems to sort of be fulfilling the narrative that you already believe is proper.
Yeah, absolutely. So the bad actor side of this, and we'll get into that in just a minute, is a really small majority. I think most of the time misinformation is presented, is forwarded, is shared, is endorsed by those who really don't know any better.
And I think typically the problem is it's not the whole story.
Right.
It's
exactly.
a portion.
It's a portion
of it. Segment of cherry-picked little piece that, again, fits the narrative that you would like to advance. And so why not just move that on forward? And, there's a lot of conversation about context and things of that nature.
Right.
I find things that are taken out of context or taken proportionately are the majority of what I would call misinformation.
Right. So again, back to the definition: misleading,
Yeah.
erroneous, or
Yeah.
false.
Yeah.
Okay. So of those
And
things,
a statement can be true when you include the entire statement,
Right.
but a portion of it taken out of context
Yeah.
can be 100%
and
false.
we'll come back to that. Thank you.
Yes.
This is part of the solution.
This is true.
So why do they share it? Well, maybe to articulate their perspectives because they don't have.
And that's the vast majority of essentially what you see on social media.
Right.
People are just demonstrating their perspective.
Right. Sometimes they share it because they're trying to warn people off that this is a warning. This is dangerous. And sometimes it's just to join others in trying to make sense of the world around them.
That makes a lot of sense too.
And that's more challenging than ever.
That's the
right?
social and social media, right? It's supposed to be social so that we share things together in positive ways, and people want to be sharing and they want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways you do it is get behind a cause or
Right.
a thought process.
Sometimes the term is bandwagoning. So
Sure.
jumping on the bandwagon because it aligns with my preconceived notions.
And sometimes, bandwagon you hear a lot in sports.
Right.
Which is fine and good because sports are fun and great. I'm a big fan. But at the end of the day, it's not earth-shattering. It's not life and death. If you talk about my team is better than your team, or I
Right.
jump on the bandwagon
Right.
of, they're going to the Super Bowl, so I'm a fan of them all of a sudden.
Right.
But actual information about things that are happening in the world, especially things that are political or even when we talk about war and conflict,
Right.
they can become very detrimental.
Very detrimental, absolutely. And some research suggests that people knowingly share things they suspect are false to damage the other side
Yes.
in a political debate.
And sometimes we'll even justify it by saying, well, they do it too.
Right, they do it too. Exactly.
So then, an eye for an eye just leaves everyone blind, right?
And here, yeah, exactly. here's that's a good one. This is not quite as nefarious, but to get likes, right?
Yeah.
Social
Oh,
media
yeah.
likes
Yeah.
and shares
Yeah.
to pump up the volume of your site.
I would think misinformation that is celebrity centered is often very, very much just trying to drive
just
traffic.
trying to drive traffic.
Likes on the post itself, clicks
Yep.
through to your website, etc.
Right.
All of that traffic that you turn into
Right.
ad sales or whatever it is. That's almost always because they give you that snippet of the celebrity life,
Right.
thinking that they're clickbait, right? That
Right,
they just get you to
clickbait.
click.
Absolutely. And sometimes they share stuff that is knowingly false because it conforms to their ideological
Right.
identities, right? I'm a conservative Republican, and therefore
I have to
everybody
share
on
this.
the left is,
Exactly. And obviously, with someone who is very far to the other end of the spectrum is going to push back at the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I'll come back to that in a minute
Sure.
because this is part of the solution. And yeah, there are bad actors out there, and we're seeing that happen right now, right?
sure.
Hyper partisans,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Trolls, foreign agents.
Yes.
I mean, this is something.
There are people, foreign agents are literally paid
Yep.
to create this disinformation.
Yep, absolutely. To create and share disinformation that disrupts, causes division, causes confusion, and we're seeing Russia doing an awful lot of that stuff right
Yes,
now.
at some very amazing levels.
Right. And to promote a political point
In
of
some
view.
unexpected ways, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And bad actors do misinformation for monetary gain too.
That's true.
It's a scam.
There are plenty of people who will do whatever it takes to make money, and they don't care who they hurt in the process.
So misinformation and disinformation are fundamentally exploitative in nature. Mm-hmm. Often targeted our most deeply held beliefs
Yes.
and values, and they're intended to elicit a strong emotional response,
Yes.
right? That overrides our more rational thought process.
Exactly right. That's exactly when something is dispelled weeks, months later, and someone says, "Whoever fell for this?" It's
Yeah.
always because they got you mad,
Right.
they got you sad,
Absolutely.
or they panicked you.
Absolutely. The emotions most often elicited are fear, anger, and outrage.
There you go.
You know, the more agreeable emotions like curiosity and hope are also used to help us bypass that cognitive defense.
Sure.
Right? So there are 5 types of misinformation. This is from the PRSA, Public Relations Society of America,
the
efforts
experts
on misinformation. The first is false context. This is an image, video, quote, or other piece of content presented in a new false context that changes its meaning.
Yes.
Right? Deep fake videos.
Selectively edited videos.
Absolutely.
Pull quotes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling a 2-second bit of
Segments of
video
these, yes.
out of context of an
or
hour.
a video that's 20 years old or 30 years
exactly.
old. Using language that maybe was acceptable in 1990 or 1980 that is not acceptable these days.
And I give the U.S. Department of Defense props for calling out some of this stuff before Putin invaded Ukraine, pulling pages out of his playbook and telling us what we can expect. And that's exactly what we're doing. Some of the images that the Russian disinformation has provided came from the 70s. I mean,
well, you know, that was when the heyday of the KGB. So you know,
absolutely.
There you go.
So
they want it to be the 70s again, back when the actual USSR existed, the entire empire.
Absolutely.
Before Reagan broke them.
Yeah. The second is fabricated content. That's entirely made up, such as computer-generated imagery, entirely fictional reports.
Yes.
I mean, and again, we're seeing some of that as well.
You know, photoshopping someone's head on someone else's body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the technology now is very scary. You referenced deep fakes and things earlier. Some of the things that they can do now, there's a lot of people demonstrating deep fakes by, swapping, movie stars and roles that exactly they were never in that role.
Right.
But it's still very convincing, even when you know it's a fake.
Even when you know it, exactly.
So when you see it fly across your Twitter feed or on an Instagram post, and you don't exactly know it's fake because you don't know where it's coming from, it can be very convincing.
Very, absolutely. This is one I hadn't thought about, but stolen satire. Okay?
Yes.
That's a specific kind of false context information.
Yes.
In which all or part of a piece of satire is presented as authentic.
Yep.
All right.
Which is also why you have to be careful about how you communicate in general.
Right.
Because you can slip a sentence or two out of a completely sarcastic comment or something of that nature, or sometimes people exaggerate things in order to be an example.
Right.
Like, see, this exaggeration proves the point. Well, then if you just take the exaggeration and not the point proven, it does look like they believe these extremes.
Yeah, exactly. Satire is a interesting form of humor anyway, in my opinion, but people use it as misinformation,
and
disinformation.
One of the forms of communication that is very specifically protected as part of our free speech rights in the United States. Now, not everywhere in the world.
Right.
Not everywhere in the world, but there is a lot of protected speech that falls under satire here in the United States. I'm a huge proponent of free speech, so I'm definitely on the side of that. But it can be then misused. It's the misuse that's the problem, not the satire to begin with.
Absolutely. And then there's imposter content, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying, and that's content such as a fake tweet from a public figure or a fake ad.
I saw recently a fake tweet. It's a fake account we have an amusement park here in Oklahoma City. And I noticed quickly it was misspelled in the title. So I knew it was a parody, but it was very close.
Right.
And as a local story about a person who's running for office who had too much to drink and got herself in trouble. And the fake amusement park account was mocking it, and scrolling. It was like quickly whoa. I read it. I realized it was fake. I thought it was funny because I knew it was fake.
Right.
And then I moved on. I think I told my wife, like, no, look, this would be funny if this was real, right?
Right.
And moved on because it was story of the day. It was very topical, and so it made sense.
Sure.
Someone could see that a week or a month later, it wouldn't make as much sense because of the timing, and then easily fall for the fact that it's not the real account.
Right. Well, you are media literate in the way that you handled that.
This is true.
Right.
It's my job to be that person.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
So, and this is really at the base of what we're talking about. And then the last one is manipulated content. We've all seen this: photos, videos, graphics, other type that have been doctored in some way, elements artificially added or
Yep.
subtracted. I mean, a lot of the TikTok videos of young people, young women in particular, photoshopped
Yep.
so that they got like a 12-inch waist. I mean, that's
Right.
manipulated content.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So here's some red flags. If you see these common misinformation themes and rumor cues,
Okay.
proceed with caution. The first phrase is, let it sink in. All right?
They're trying to move you past your initial reaction,
Right.
which is, no, this can't be real.
No, this can't be real. That's a red flag.
Okay.
The media won't report this.
Oh, yes, there's that too.
That's another
right.
red
That's
flag.
right.
All right?
Believe me, don't believe anyone else.
Exactly. Make this go viral.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do your own research,
Ah, okay.
which is actually savvy advice.
It is.
But if somebody is passing misinformation or disinformation along and they tell you to do your own research, that's a red flag.
One of the reasons misinformation works is people are looking for what they would call data or truth.
Confirmatory data.
That confirms their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so this is a great example of you've been looking for something that paints the picture you would like to see.
Right.
Well, here it is.
Right.
And I'm going to present it as research because I
Right.
told you to do your own research.
your own research.
Oh, it's research. It must be fact. It's true. Now I know. It's quickly easy for your
Yeah.
brain to go through that process.
Absolutely. And then the last one is there are no coincidences.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of an interesting red flag.
It's kind of funny because
It is.
There
There
are
are no
coincidences.
coincidences.
There are coincidences.
Right. And then there's patterns, right?
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
patterns to look out for. Manipulated text on signs
and
or
I can
t-shirts.
tell you, as a person who uses data analysis in our business,
Mm-hmm.
it is. I see so many people go so quickly to, something happens once or twice, and they call it a trend and
Call
a
it good,
pattern. Like,
right.
it's not. It's
No.
not a pattern. It's not a trend yet. It's a singular activity.
That's
There's so
just
much.
been repeated.
Yes,
Right.
and then there's other information
Right.
that would then rebuke that's not a pattern because these things, and there's a majority of the COVID reporting over the last 2 years, people saying, well, what it means is X.
Right.
They're really missing, they're always missing something because
Right.
there's so much data and so many trends and patterns there, depending on age, comorbidities, part of the country, vaccinated or not, all these things that you can't just boil down one data point and say it means this because there's too much other information that loads into it. Of course,
Absolutely.
it's our media outlet's job just to boil it down to the simplest point, but you can't look at a singular pattern without the whole of all the other patterns and decide if it's true or not.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And I could do a whole show on my feelings about the major news networks today. I think they've abrogated their responsibility, but that's it. That's another podcast.
We could do a series
That's
on
another
this
podcast.
podcast.
Here's another pattern. A doctored, amazing nature or space photo.
Oh.
It's if it seems too good to be true,
Yeah,
it must
exactly.
be.
Yes.
Absolutely. Photos of protests and crowds
Easy to
must
manipulate.
come under scrutiny.
Yes,
That should be
so
a
easy
major
to
red
manipulate,
flag.
so easy to reuse old footage, etc. Yeah.
And here's a pretty easy catch if you're paying attention, and that's what this whole thing is about, is
Sure.
to get you to pay attention. Screenshots of articles with no links.
That's right. Don't
Right.
show me the article. Let me read it for myself.
Right. Give me the link.
They're
so
giving
I
you the
can do
headline.
Yep.
Very easy to, and text is one of the easiest things to manipulate on the planet.
Yeah.
Photos and
Absolutely.
video are becoming easier because of technology, but text itself, here's what the article says.
Yeah.
Well, I could type in any information I want under the headline and tell you it comes from the New York Times or from People magazine or from some other source that someone might trust. Doesn't mean that's the actual words that actually hit the paper on the publication.
Yeah. Well, I may have buried the lead, but why is this important? Well, I do think it's a serious threat to democracy and our economy.
Certainly.
I absolutely do.
And it is detrimental to almost the collective mental health of everyone on the planet. I always talk about the social and social media, right? It's supposed to be social. It's supposed to be intended to bring us together.
Right.
And when people use it to push us apart, it's detrimental.
And it undermines the ability of individuals and organizations to make and engage in informed
Yes.
decision making.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The freedom of of information. This is why the freedom of the press and free speech is so important. The communication of legitimate information for people to make decisions about how to live their life and what to engage in or not is essential for good decision making.
Absolutely.
How you filter out all this other stuff, that's a very complicated process. But the
We're
more
gonna-
we can avoid those red flags, the better off we'll be.
Absolutely. And we've got some tips here in a minute that can help us with that. And lastly, it pollutes the information environment.
Yeah.
With all that crap floating around out there, how do you know
How do you know what
what's
to believe?
real, right? So the best defense, 3 simple steps. Checking out unfamiliar people and sources.
Certainly.
A little research.
Yeah.
We talk about research all the time here, right? Building mutual understanding, trust, and civic engagement. And that's what this is all about. And through more inclusive civil discourse. We have lost the ability in this
Yes.
country to have a civil conversation
Yes,
with,
and I
with
think
people
the
that we
current
don't agree
situation
with.
right now, which is literally either you must be a commie and a sympathizer, or you want to send our troops off to die in a foreign land. These are the two opposite ends of that conversation.
Polars.
Lord, there
Right.
is so much middle ground
Absolutely.
there of we would like to see this conflict end. We don't want to see these things happening to the Ukrainian people. Doesn't necessarily mean that you think, we should have our boots on the ground at the same time. And not supporting that idea also doesn't mean you think Putin should win and should get to just do what he's doing.
Right.
There's so much gray area and so much like conflict even within personal conflict. I would like to see Putin be repelled. I don't want to see necessarily everyone in the world get involved in World War III.
Right, absolutely. So what action can you take? Well, the first thing is, and academia has struggled with this for decades, but it's take a media literacy course.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch. We'll put the notes in
Right.
the footnotes here, but there are a lot of them that are out there. Media literacy has proven effective in improving our ability to identify misinformation and disinformation. It helps us to more accurately judge the veracity of news and news headlines in particular.
Yeah.
Right? And it helps motivate to verify news stories using online research. That's the basis. Take a pause before you share, right?
Yeah, you have to be cognizant of the fact that these things do exist in the world and that you need to prepare yourself and do a little bit of work.
Yep. So PRSA, as I mentioned, has this, it's called Voices for Everyone.
Trusted experts,
All together,
PRSA. Trusted
right?
experts.
Voices, number 4, everyone. And they've got a bunch of materials that can be very helpful. If you go to PRSA and Voices for Everyone, or just Google Voices for Everyone.
There you go.
Again, we'll put the links
PRSA,
in
the Public Relations
in the
Society
notes.
of America.
Yep. One of the infographics that they have is it legit? 5 steps to vetting a news release.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Another is 8 tips to Google like a pro,
Okay.
which everybody can use,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
But it's to help you steer around
Certainly.
the BS that's
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
And then in brief, misinformation. It's an infographic on
Right.
misinformation. A lot of this that we talked about today is drawn from that. And then they have quizzes, news-lit quizzes, like avoid the trap of conspiratorial thinking.
Ah.
So, a couple questions. You can test yourself.
Yeah.
How well prepared am I?
What tendencies do you have?
Absolutely. Should you share it is another quiz
Yes.
that you can take.
All of these tools can help individuals, anyone listening to this podcast, to discern their way through misinformation and fake news. But also at the same time, if you're needing to communicate, if you're a communication professional, you're a marketing professional, public relations, if you're a business owner that needs to do your own media, reverse the process.
Right.
Make sure you're not doing things that look like it's fake news.
Right.
Do the work.
Absolutely.
Do your due diligence to present
Absolutely.
your information about your business, who you're working with. Legitimate news releases
Right.
need to look as legitimate as possible so people can believe in them. So make sure you, as the communicator, are reversing this process and not making any of those mistakes that make it look like you're presenting fake news.
Well, and I think you've mentioned it a couple times. PRSA is the experts. And this is really an effort to get communicators are in a great space to help this problem, solve this problem.
Yes.
So kudos to PRSA
well, and
for
it has to
stepping up.
it has to be championed by professional communicators.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully, everyone buys into the process.
In.
But someone has to be the champions of these ideas, and that's what we're talking about with PRSA and with communication professionals.
And there are some free course links to free media literacy courses in this. But one of the last thing I want to talk about is that they've gamified some of this information, right?
I love gamification.
There are 3 games that you can play. I played Harmony Square, which was actually built by Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. I played that yesterday. It's got 4 chapters, and I just went berserk. I just went over the top. But it was so interesting to see the results of my actions. It's a Harmony Square, and it's got a live statue, and it's got a duck, and so how are you going to get the people in this town to really hate the square? Right, and trash it, and it's really interesting.
Okay,
it captured my interest, but it also showed me the power of some of the things that we're talking about. And then there's another one I haven't played it yet, but Go Viral, and the last one is Spot the Troll.
Yeah.
So all of these things are part of the Voices Forever.
I only want to spot the troll if I get to smack the troll.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to give the troll what they deserve.
Yeah. So I think this is really important and certainly topical and something that we really need to pay attention to in these next several months and the lead up to the midterm elections. To start to develop some good habit patterns, to start getting back to civil discourse, to not believe in everything that we see on the internet. And people have said that for decades, at least since the internet came about.
One of my favorite quotes is that you shouldn't believe everything on the internet, from Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely.
He said that about the internet.
About the internet, exactly. Yes. Yeah, that, and we forbid in academia. I forbid students to use Wikipedia as a source. Yeah, same kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
the veracity of the information.
If anyone can edit it, then you can't really depend on that information.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, look at the notes. We encourage you to go become more media literate, to be on the alert for disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation, especially today. Let's get this thing headed. Let's get this ship headed back in a better direction. So until next time, ciao.
Good luck.
This has been the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. Thanks for listening.